My hopelessly romantic brother wanted to call off his engagement. The engagement to Helena Vance, unanimously considered the most beautiful and eligible heiress in all of New York City. My parents were so furious, they looked one gasp away from needing a paramedic. But my brother, Caleb, just pointed at me in the corner where I was busy demolishing a rack of barbecue ribs. His face was a mask of contempt. "Let Leo marry her," he sneered. "I'm sure he'd be thrilled." I froze for 2 seconds. Then I dropped the rib, power slid across the marble floor, and grabbed his leg. "Caleb, you're my hero," I wailed, looking up at him. "Please, I'm begging you, call it off. Let me take one for the team." Chapter 1. A porcelain cup shattered against the mahogany coffee table. Scalding tea hissed as it soaked into the hand-knotted rug, a wisp of steam rising from the stain. My father clutched his chest, his face ashen. He pointed a trembling finger at Caleb, who stood defiant in the center of the grand living room. My mother leaned against the back of the sofa, gasping for air, looking like she was about to faint. Caleb's chin was high, his neck ramrod straight. Hiding behind him was a woman in a white sundress, Daisy Lynn. Her hands were clenched in the back of Caleb's jacket, her eyes red-rimmed. She bit her lip, tears welling up but refusing to fall in a masterful display of manufactured fragility. Seated on the guest sofa were Walter Vance and his granddaughter, Helena. Helena wore a black, custom-tailored power suit, her legs crossed, her posture perfect. She held a delicate china teacup, her knuckles white from the force of her grip. She said nothing, didn't even raise an eyebrow, her gaze fixed on the tea, leaves floating in her cup. "Caleb, have you lost your mind?" my father finally roared, slamming his hand on the table so hard an apple rolled out of the fruit bowl and onto the floor. "This engagement to the Vance family was arranged by your grandfather, and you bring this nobody home and tell us you want to call it off." Caleb scoffed, pulling Daisy protectively in front of him. "Dad, Daisy isn't a nobody. She's the love of my life. What am I supposed to do with a woman like Helena Vance? She's a cold-blooded robot who only cares about work and board meetings. Am I supposed to marry her and put her on a pedestal in a museum? I want a wife who understands me, who loves me, who actually cares about me." Daisy leaned into Caleb's chest, her voice dripping with a saccharine sweetness. "Caleb, honey, please don't fight with your parents because of me. It's all my fault. I'm not good enough for you. I should just go." She made a show of turning to leave, but her feet remained firmly planted. Caleb wrapped his arms around her tighter, his eyes wide with passion. "Daisy, don't you dare leave. This engagement is over. I'm calling it off today, and no one is going to stop me." I shrank into the armchair in the corner, a half-eaten rib still in my hand, sauce smeared across my mouth. Man, this is a terminal case of lovesickness. Not even the Mayo Clinic could help him now. Mr. Vance finally set down his cane, the heavy wood thudding against the floor. "Well, Charles," he said, his voice dangerously low, "it seems the Sterling family has decided they are too good for us." My father flinched as if he'd been struck and was about to start apologizing profusely, but Caleb cut him off. "Mr. Vance, you can't force love. Helena is a fantastic catch. Men would line up from here to California to marry her. Why are you so insistent on forcing her on me?" Caleb's eyes scanned the room and then, suddenly, landed on me. He raised his arm, his finger pointed directly at my face. "If you feel so bad about breaking the deal, let Leo marry her. He's a useless bum who does nothing all day. He'd jump at the chance to marry Helena Vance." The room fell into a dead silence. Every single head turned to look at me. My dad's eyes were wide, my mom stopped breathing, and Mr. Vance's brow furrowed. Helena finally looked up, her icy gaze cutting right through me. I was still chewing on a piece of gristle. I froze for 2 seconds. My eyes drifted from Helena's billion-dollar supermodel face to Caleb's, which looked like it had been repeatedly kicked by a donkey. Is this it? Has my lottery ticket finally come in? I swallowed the gristle, tossed the rib bone onto a napkin, and wiped my mouth with the back of my hand. I bit my knees. My pants hit the polished marble floor. Screech, using the momentum, I executed a flawless power slide right to Caleb's feet and hugged his leg for dear life. "Caleb, you're my king," I screamed, my voice thick with emotion. "I'm begging you, call off this engagement. Let me take your place. I'll bear this terrible burden for you. The sudden move startled Caleb, who stumbled back, trying to shake me off, but I held on tight. Leo, what the hell is wrong with you? He hissed. I ignored him, clinging to his leg as I turned to Mr. Vance. I beat my chest emphatically. Mr. Vance, my brother is blind, but I can see perfectly. Just say the word, and I'll take Helena to City Hall tomorrow. I promise I'll worship the ground she walks on. I'll bring her coffee in bed every morning. No, wait, I'll wish her good morning and good night every single day, without fail. The teacup in Helena's hand trembled, splashing hot liquid onto her skin. She calmly took out a tissue to dab it, her eyes locked on my face. My father was shaking with rage. You worthless punk, he yelled, pointing at me. Stop making a scene. Dad, I'm saving this family. I shot to my feet and walked directly in front of Helena. She remained seated on the sofa. I stood before her, less than 2 feet away. I could smell the cool, woody scent of her perfume. Ms. Vance, I said, my earlier goofy expression gone, my back straight as I met her gaze. Caleb doesn't deserve you. His head is full of rocks, and if you marry him, you'll spend the rest of your life trying to get water from them. Marry me, and you'll get a man whose only ambition is to be the world's greatest trophy husband. I swear I will never interfere with your business decisions. Just give me a $10,000 monthly allowance, and I will be your most loyal arm candy. Helena's eyes flickered away for a second. She subtly shifted in her seat. She took a deep breath, tried to regain her composure. Leo, do you have any idea what you're saying? Her voice was so cold it could have caused frostbite. Edo. I leaned in, bracing my hands on the armrests on either side of her, and lowered my voice. I'm offering you a way to get your dignity back. He humiliated you in public for this cheap knockoff. So, you dump him and get a new fiancé on the spot. You can humiliate him right back. Her pupils constricted. The room was silent. From behind me, Caleb jeered. See, Helena? A useless leech is the only one who'd want you. Just marry him already and leave me alone. Helena shot to her feet, her heels clicking sharply on the marble. She was half a head shorter than me and had to tilt her head up to look me in the eye. Fine, she said, a single word from her perfect red lips. Mr. Vance was aghast. Helena, marriage is not a game. Grandfather, since the Sterlings broke their promise, it's not as if I don't have other options, she said. She turned to Caleb, her eyes freezing him in place. Caleb, I wish you and Ms. Lynn a very happy life together. May you be shackled to one another for eternity, so you don't inflict yourselves on anyone else. With that, she grabbed my wrist. Get your driver's license and birth certificate. We're leaving. I intertwined my fingers with hers. You got it, honey. Chapter 2, The Steps of City Hall. The bold, white letters of the government building gleamed in the afternoon sun. Helena stood there, clutching 2 small, official-looking marriage certificates, her knuckles white. She turned, her eyes raking over me like a pair of scalpels. Leo, we have the certificates. The show is over. She tossed one of the documents into her designer handbag and pulled open the door of her Maybach. My finance department will wire you $10,000 a month. Stay out of my way and stay out of my private life. Got it. I put my hand on the car door, stopping her from getting in. Helena, that's not entirely accurate. I pulled a neatly folded stack of 4 papers from my pocket and shook them open. Now that we're married, we are a legally bound couple. As the newest trophy husband of the Vance family, I have to demonstrate my professional commitment. Her brow furrowed, her eyes landing on the papers. At the top, in bold, size 72 font, were the words, The Modern Trophy Husband's Code of Conduct. Rule number 1. I cleared my throat and began to read aloud. When my wife goes out, I will follow. When my wife gives an order, I will obey. When my wife is wrong, I will blindly agree. Rule number 2, I must be home by 10 p.m. every night. I will never mess around, and I will never engage in unnecessary physical contact with any female creature, including mosquitoes. Helena's breathing grew heavy, her chest rising and falling. She looked at me as if I belonged in a psychiatric hospital. What do you want? She asked through gritted teeth. I want to be good at my job. I shoved the papers into her hands. Flip to page 2. The gold standard gold digger's business plan. I demand not just money, but also the chance to provide emotional support. When you come home from work, I'll give you a shoulder rub. When you're angry, I'll be your punching bag. As long as the price is right, I'll take the hits. She looked like she wanted to slap me with the papers, but her hand froze mid-air. She forced it down. Leo, don't think I don't know what you're up to. You're just trying to use the Vance family's influence to fight for the Sterling inheritance, she said with a cold snort. This woman has quite an imagination. The Sterling family fortune wouldn't even be a rounding error for me. I sighed and leaned closer to her ear. Honey, the Sterling family business is a sinking ship, and Caleb is the idiot drilling holes in the hull. I'm just jumping overboard and clinging to your much, much bigger yacht. Don't worry. I don't want your heart. I just want your money. Her gaze darted away, and she swallowed hard. She shoved me back and dove into the car. Drive, she barked at the chauffeur. The Maybach sped away, leaving me in a cloud of exhaust. I dusted off my pants and pulled out my phone. A new notification popped up on my Instagram feed. Caleb had posted a photo of his and Daisy's hands intertwined. The caption read, "True love conquers all. We've broken free from the chains of convention to finally be together." At Daiselin, a chorus of his sycophantic friends had already liked and commented. I smirked and my thumbs flew across the screen. I liked the post. Then I commented, "Thanks for the hand-me-down wife, bro. Living off the Vance fortune is amazing, but it's not for the weak. Wishing you and the new wifey a lifetime of happiness. You should probably get a DNA test for the kid, just in case." Not a minute later, my phone rang. It was Caleb. I answered and held the phone an arm's length away. Now, what the hell was that? Are you cursing me? Caleb's roar nearly blew out my eardrum. Bro, I'm just giving you a friendly warning, I said casually, leaning against a lamppost. Daisy's way out of your league, and I don't mean that as a compliment. You don't want to end up raising some other guy's kid and thinking you're a hero for it. That's bullshit. Daisy is a sweet, innocent girl. She's never even held a guy's hand. Never held a guy's hand? Please. She's had guys' entire lives in her hands. Right, sweet and innocent. Look, bro, you should probably hurry up and buy her that new handbag and car she wants before she gets upset. I don't need you to tell me what to do. I'm taking her to get that Porsche right now. You could spend the rest of your life as a pathetic kept man, kissing up to your wife. Caleb slammed the phone down. I stared at the black screen, a small smile on my face. Caleb, you fool. You really think you can just spend the family money whenever you want? I dialed another number. Hey, Dave. It's Leo. I need you to freeze all the corporate cards under Caleb's name. Yeah, all of them. Immediately. The reason? Just tell them it's a system upgrade. I hung up and stretched. The show was just getting started. Chapter 3, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. The finance department of the Sterling Corporation Tower. I was lounging in the CFO's plush leather chair, my feet propped up on his desk, spinning a Mont Blanc pen between my fingers. Good old Dave, the CFO, stood beside me, nervously wiping sweat from his brow. The sound of hurried footsteps, heels and hard-soled dress shoes, echoed down the hallway. Bang! The door to the finance department was kicked open. Caleb stormed in, face red with rage. Daisy followed closely behind, her eyes puffy, looking like the victim of a great injustice. Dave, what the hell is going on? Why was my car declined? I was at the Porsche dealership, and it was frozen. Do you have any idea how humiliating that was? Caleb slammed his palm on the desk, scattering a pile of documents. Dave jumped back, his eyes darting toward me. Only then did Caleb notice me sitting in the chair. His eyes bulged. Now, what is a loser like you doing here? Get out of that chair. You don't belong here. I stopped spinning the pen and slowly lowered my feet to the floor. Easy there, big bro, don't have an aneurysm. I picked up Dave's thermos and offered it to him. Have some water. Get lost. Caleb slapped the thermos out of my hand, sending lukewarm water and tea leaves spilling across the floor. Stop playing dumb. This was your doing, wasn't it? Unfreeze my cards right now. Daisy fell in love with a Panamera, and we're getting it today. I leaned back in the chair, my hands laced over my stomach. Bro, I think you're confused about something. I opened a drawer, pulled out a file, and tossed it onto the desk. The company accounts are not your personal slush fund for picking up women. As of today, all of your corporate cards are frozen. Indefinitely. Caleb snatched the file, glanced at it, and tore it to shreds. Paper confetti fluttered through the air. Who the hell do you think you are? What gives you the right to freeze my cards? Mom and Dad are still alive. You're not the one in charge here. Caleb jabbed a finger in my face, spittle flying everywhere. I wiped my face and stood up. My right comes from being Helena Vance's husband now. I stepped closer to him, lowering my voice. The company's South Bronx redevelopment project has a major cash flow problem. We're begging Vance Enterprises for an investment. What do you think would happen to that investment if I called Helena right now? Caleb's face went pale. His lips trembled. Are you threatening me? Yes, I am, I said, patting his cheek. Look, I respect you for giving up a family alliance for true love. But you can't chase your happily ever after while draining the family coffers to do it. That kind of ruins your whole pure love warrior persona, don't you think? Seeing the tide turn, Daisy immediately clung to Caleb's arm, tears streaming down her face. Caleb, honey, just forget it. I don't need a Porsche. I'm happy to ride a city bike. As long as I'm with you, that's all that matters. Please don't fight with Leo for me. He has the Vances backing him now. We can't afford to make him angry. She made a pull away, but her grip on his arm only tightened. Her words were like gasoline on a fire. Caleb's protective instincts went into overdrive. Daisy, don't cry. I'm here. No one's going to bully you. Caleb shot me a venomous look. Leo, don't get too cocky. Helena is just using you to make me angry. Do you really think she's into you? The second you're no longer useful, she'll kick you to the curb. Maybe so, but that's a problem for future me, I said with a shrug. For now, would you two please get out of the finance department? You're interrupting my very important work. Caleb ground his teeth, his fists clenched. He wanted to hit me, but knew he couldn't risk it. He swallowed his anger, grabbed Daisy, and stormed out. Leo, you just wait. As I reached the door, I called out, Hey bro, don't forget to actually pay for the city bike. Don't try to cheat the system. Caleb stumbled, nearly face-planting in the hallway. I settled back into the chair, pulled out my phone, and sent a text to Helena. Wifey, save the family from buying a Porsche today. Praise me. The screen lit up with her reply. One word, blocked. I clutched the phone to my chest. Oof. So cold. I love it. Chapter 4, 8 o'clock at night. The grand ballroom of the Zenith Hotel. The air was thick with perfume and the murmur of conversation. It felt like every major player in the city's business world was here. I was wearing a borrowed designer tux, trailing behind Helena. She was in a stunning black, backless evening gown, her hair swept up, revealing the elegant curve of her neck. She was a vision of cool sophistication, an untouchable black swan. The moment we entered, all eyes were on us. Whispers followed in our wake. Is that the new trophy husband of the Vance family? I heard he's a good-for-nothing freeloader. That older Sterling kid must be blind. Dumping Helena Vance for some random girl. Helena's posture remained impeccable, completely ignoring the gossip. I hurried to her side and offered my arm. Honey, you should take my arm. We're supposed to be playing the part of a happy couple. Can't drop the ball. Helena glanced away, about to refuse. Don't move, I whispered. Caleb is at your 10 o'clock, staring. Do you want him to think he's won? Her body stiffened. She followed my gaze. Sure enough, Caleb was standing there in a white tuxedo, holding a glass of wine, glaring at us. Beside him, Daisy was dressed in an offensively bright pink tulle dress, looking like a deranged flamingo. Helena took a deep breath and slid her hand into the crook of my arm. Her hand was cold. I led her straight toward Caleb. Well, if it isn't my big brother and my new sister-in-law, I said, grabbing 2 glasses of champagne and handing one to Helena. Fancy seeing you two here. Come to freeload off the open bar. Caleb's face darkened. Watch your mouth, Leo. This is a high-level business gala. A parasite like you wouldn't have even gotten past the front door if not for Helena. You're right. I am a parasite, I said without a hint of shame. But being a successful one is a skill. One you'll clearly never master. Daisy stepped forward, holding her own glass, her expression one of pure, pitiful innocence. Ms. Vance, I'm so sorry for everything that happened. Caleb was just so in love with me. He did something impulsive. I hope you're not angry with us. I'd like to toast to you and, Lau, may you both be happy. She put a special, mocking emphasis on my name, her eyes full of scorn. Helena held her glass, unmoving. Daisy was left holding her glass in midair. Her face fell, her eyes immediately reddened, and she looked at Caleb with a wounded expression. Helena, Don't be such a bitch. Caleb exploded. Daisy is trying to be nice. Who do you think you are, acting so high and mighty? The surrounding guests turned to stare. I stepped in front of Helena. Bro, that's not very fair of you, I said, pointing at the champagne in Daisy's hand. My wife is on her period. She can't drink. Are you trying to make a woman on her period drink ice-cold champagne? What's your problem? Are you trying to make her infertile? The entire ballroom went silent. Helena let out a sharp cough, her face flushing a deep crimson. She pinched the flesh at my waist and twisted hard. I winced, biting back a yelp of pain. Daisy's face went from pale to green. I didn't know. If you didn't know, then you should keep your mouth shut. I took the glass from Daisy's hand and unceremoniously dumped it into a nearby potted plant. And another thing, stop calling her Ms. Vance. She's my wife now, Mrs. Sterling. You're not even officially part of the family yet. Learn some manners. Tears burst from Daisy's eyes. She covered her face and ran away. Daisy, Caleb shot me a murderous glare. Leo, I'll get you for this. He then chased after her. Watching their pathetic retreat, I let out a long breath. I turned back to Helena, who was looking at me with an incredibly complicated expression. What was that nonsense you were spouting? She hissed. I was protecting you, wasn't I? I rubbed my aching side. Honey, play along. My kidney is about to fall out. She released her grip with a huff. Vulgar. Just then, the ballroom lights dimmed. A single spotlight hit the center of the stage. I bowed low and offered my hand to Helena. Ms. Vance, may I have this dance? She stared at my outstretched hand. She wanted to refuse, but swallowed her words. She placed her hand in mine. The music began. We glided onto the dance floor. Leo, what do you really want? She whispered, her head resting near my shoulder. I told you, I just want your money, I said, pulling her closer. And, as a bonus, I get a front row seat to watch Caleb self-destruct. Chapter 5. Caleb was getting desperate. With his credit cards frozen, Daisy was in his ear 24/7, crying about how they didn't have their own place to live, a home that was truly theirs. To prove his love, Caleb decided to go after the Sterling Corporation stock. The Sterling family estate in the Hudson Valley. Late at night, I was sitting in a security office, watching a bank of monitors, slurping a cup of instant ramen. Helena stood behind me, arms crossed, her eyes glued to the screen. On screen, Caleb was sneaking into our father's library like a thief. Using the flashlight on his phone, he went straight to a bookshelf, moved a specific volume, and revealed a hidden safe. The password is Dad's birthday. I mumbled through a mouthful of noodles. On the monitor, Caleb punched in the code. Beep click. The safe swung open. A look of pure ecstasy crossed Caleb's face as he reached inside. He pulled out a thick manila folder. That's the transfer agreement for 15% of the company's shares, Helena said, her voice like ice. If he signs that, those shares will fall into a third party's hands. The Sterling family will lose its controlling interest. Don't worry. He won't get them, I said, putting down my fork and wiping my mouth. On the screen, Caleb aimed his flashlight at the documents. His ecstatic expression froze. At the top of the first page, in huge letters, was the title, Valpak, your local coupon mailer. Caleb rubbed his eyes, then flipped to the next page in disbelief. Promotional flyer for Big AL's online poker palace. The third page, a beginner's guide to alpaca breeding. Caleb was trembling. The phone slipped from his grasp and clattered to the floor. He frantically emptied the safe, throwing papers everywhere. It was all junk. No, impossible. Where are the share agreements? He grabbed his hair, sinking to the floor in despair. I pressed the button on the intercom, my voice piping through a hidden speaker in the library. Hey bro, can't sleep? Looking for alpaca breeding tips in Dad's office in the middle of the night? Didn't know you were into that. Caleb jumped, scrambling on the floor and looking around wildly. Now, it was you. Where did you put the share agreements? He roared into the empty room. Don't bother looking, bro, I said casually, leaning back in my chair. I've already sold that 15% stake. The money is already sitting in Dad's personal account. You could tear this house apart, and you wouldn't find a single share. There was a dead silence from the library. Caleb's legs gave out, and he collapsed onto the floor. He gasped for air, his eyes fixed on the security camera in the corner of the ceiling. You had no right to sell the family's shares. You're a thief. I was helping you, bro. I sighed. You were going to sell them to some shady shell corporation and sink the entire family. I sold them to the Vances. At least that keeps it in the family, so to speak. Besides, if Dad found out you were about to use that money to fund Daisy's lifestyle, he'd break both your legs. Caleb scrambled to his feet, pointing at the camera. That's bullshit. Daisy is not a gold digger. She truly loves me. You're slandering her. Right, true love. Why don't you go ask her who a guy named Whale _number_ once? I cut the intercom feed. The security room was quiet again. Helena was looking at me, a new, inquisitive light in her eyes. When did you take the share agreements? Yesterday afternoon, I said, swiveling the chair to face her. I've known the combination to Dad's safe since I was 10. I took the documents and had Dad sign them. When he heard Caleb was planning to steal them, he nearly had a stroke and gave me full authority to handle it. Helena's brow furrowed slightly. Why did you transfer them to my family? Because the Vances are loaded, I said, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. Honey, got to keep the money flowing in the right direction. Now that you're even richer, shouldn't my allowance get a little bump? She glanced away, turning to leave. Be in my office tomorrow to sign the final transfer documents. She paused at the door. Leo, she said without turning back. You're not as stupid as I thought. Chapter 6, a high-tech loft in Bushwick, swimming in the glow of multiple monitors. I sat in a high-end gaming chair, my fingers flying across a keyboard. Lines of code and chat logs scrolled across the screen. Next to me was my childhood friend, a genius hacker who went by the name Glitch. Leo, this girl is a masterpiece, Glitch said, pointing at a complex relationship web on the screen and whistling. She's juggling 3 different sugar daddies at the same time. Their contact names in her phone are ATM 1, Sucker 2, and Backup Plan 3. Your brother, Caleb, doesn't even get a number. His contact name is Dumb, Rich, and Easy. I looked at the screen at the explicit chat logs between Daisy and these men, and I let out a cold laugh. Package all of it. The chats, the loan shark records, everything. You got it. Sending them to your brother? No. I stopped him. If I send them to Caleb, he'll just say I faked them. He's in the terminal stage. He won't believe it until he sees it with his own eyes. I took the mouse and sent the files to the 3 sugar daddies. Send these to our 3 friends here. And casually mentioned that Daisy is having a romantic dinner with Caleb tonight at 8 o'clock. At the Gilded Lily. Glitch gave me a thumbs up. Damn, Leo. Cold-blooded. You're setting up an all-out war. I call it market consolidation, I said, standing up and stretching. 7:30 that evening at the Gilded Lily. I was in a casual shirt and jeans, sitting with Helena in a discreet corner booth. 2 perfect filet mignons sat in front of us. Helena cut a small piece of steak, her movements graceful. Why did you bring me here? She asked, setting down her silverware. For the dinner theater. I gestured with my chin toward a table across the room. At 8 o'clock sharp, Caleb and Daisy arrived. Caleb was dressed in head-to-toe designer labels, his hair slicked back. Daisy clung to his arm, the picture of adoration. The moment they sat down, Caleb snapped his fingers for the waiter. A bottle of your 82 Lafite. And 2 of your most expensive tasting menus, he ordered, slapping a black credit card on the table. Daisy gazed at him with starstruck eyes. Oh, Caleb, you're so good to me. Caleb took her hand. Daisy, my love, I would do anything for you. As soon as I get control of my family's assets, we'll get married. I nearly choked on my water. Just as I was recovering, the restaurant's doors burst open. 3 large, menacing men stormed in. The one in the lead was bald, with a thick gold chain around his neck, and he was clutching a stack of printed A4 papers. Daisy Lynn, where is that lying bitch? The bald man roared, his voice rattling the windows. Daisy flinched violently, dropping her fork with a clatter. Her face went white, and she tried to slide down in her seat. But the bald man spotted her. He strode over, grabbed a fistful of her hair, and yanked her out of her chair. Help me, she shrieked. Caleb shot to his feet and shoved the man. What are you doing? Let her go. Security. Where's security? The bald man swung, backhanding Caleb across the face. Smack. Caleb spun halfway around from the force of the blow. One side of his face immediately started to swell, and a trickle of blood ran from the corner of his mouth. Who the hell are you, pretty boy? "This is none of your business," the man yelled, jabbing a finger at Caleb. "This bitch scammed me out of 200 grand, told me she was going to marry me, then used my money to shack up with some other chump. You must be dumb, rich, and easy, huh?" Caleb held his face, completely stunned. "You're lying. Daisy would never do that." The man laughed cruelly and threw the stack of papers in Caleb's face. They scattered across the floor, covered in printouts of Daisy's chat logs with the man, along with bank transfer receipts. The other two men closed in. "She got me for 50 grand, one shouted. "I bought her a BMW, and she sold it the next day," yelled the other. The three sugar daddies surrounded Caleb and Daisy. From my corner booth, I calmly cut another piece of steak and popped it into my mouth. "Waiter," I called out with a snap of my fingers. "Could you please play Gold Digger by Kanye West for that table over there? And turn it up." Helena watched the chaos unfold, then looked at me. A small smile played on her lips. "Leo," she said, "you are a truly terrible person." Chapter 7. The restaurant descended into chaos. Kanye's voice filled the air. "Now, I ain't saying she a gold digger, but she ain't messing with no broke." Over the music, a symphony of smashing plates, a woman's screams, and men's curses erupted. Caleb was being manhandled by the three thugs. He struggled, his expensive suit getting ripped to shreds, one of his polished shoes flying off. "Stop. You got the wrong person. Daisy wouldn't do this." He was still screaming, his voice cracking with desperation. The bald man kicked Caleb in the stomach and planted a foot on his chest. "Wrong person? I know how many moles she has on her back. Go on, ask her. Ask her if she was in my bed on the 15th of last month, promising to have my son." Caleb froze, a wave of nausea rising in his throat. He slowly turned his head to look at Daisy, who was cowering against a wall. "Daisy, is it true?" His voice trembled, his eyes bloodshot. Daisy avoided his gaze, covering her face and sobbing. "Caleb, I didn't mean to. They forced me. I only love you, Caleb." She reached for him, but the bald man shoved her away. "Save the drama for your mama," he snarled, grabbing her by the collar. "You give us our money back today, or I'm selling you to the highest bidder." Caleb stared at the chat logs on the floor, then at Daisy's face, the face he had once adored, and the world spun. His entire reality was collapsing. "Call the police." "I'm calling the police." The restaurant manager finally yelled, arriving with a couple of security guards. Sirens wailed outside. I dabbed my mouth with a napkin and stood up. "Come on, honey. The show's over. Time for our entrance." I took Helena's hand and walked over to Caleb. He was slumped on the floor, his hair a mess, his face bruised. He saw me, and his eyes went wide. "Leo, it was you sent them here," he accused, his finger shaking. "Now, bro, that's not fair," I said, looking down at him. "I was helping you face reality. You wanted to break free from your chains, right? Well, the chains are gone, and you found out they were holding up a cesspool. Are you blaming me for lifting the lid?" Caleb gasped, looking like he was about to pass out. The police burst in and took everyone to the nearest precinct. At the police station, in an interview room, Caleb sat on a chair like a lifeless doll. Daisy was in the next room, her wails echoing down the hall. As a family member, I was there to sign some papers and pay the fine for public disturbance. "Officer, my brother's not all there in the head." "Sorry for all the trouble," I said, handing the pen back. Caleb's head snapped up. He glared at me. "You won, Leo. Are you happy now?" he asked, his voice raw. "I didn't win." I pulled up a chair and sat down, looking him straight in the eye. "Caleb, you still don't get what you did wrong. You think you were some romantic hero fighting for love? You were just a fool being played by a con artist. You broke off an engagement with the Van Cess, put our father in the hospital, and tried to steal family money to fill her bottomless pit of debt. Who, exactly, were you being loyal to?" Caleb's eyes turned red. He buried his face in his hands. Tears streamed through his fingers, falling silently onto his wrists. I didn't know. I really thought she loved me." "This is what you regret? It's far too early for that." I stood up and patted his shoulder. "Don't start crying yet, bro. Daisy also owes $300,000 to a loan shark. I just got a call from them. Since you're her loving boyfriend, they said you're now responsible for her debt." Caleb looked up, his face a mask of horror. "300,000? Where am I going to get that kind of money?" "That's your problem." I turned and walked toward the door, where Helena was waiting. "Now," Caleb called out from behind me. Help me. Ask Helena to lend me some money. I'll pay it back. I swear. I stopped but didn't turn around. Bro, that's not what you were saying when you called off the engagement. You made your bed. Now lie in it. I pushed open the door, took Helena's hand, and walked out into the night. Chapter 8. 2 days later. Caleb had hit rock bottom. My parents had cut him off completely and wouldn't even let him in the house. The loan sharks were at his rented basement apartment daily, splashing red paint on his door and leaving dead rats on his doorstep. Daisy had vanished without a trace, not even leaving a goodbye text. Caleb was wandering the streets like a stray dog. But he hadn't given up. That insane obsession with saving his true love was still festering in his mind. He was convinced Daisy had only run away because she was forced to, and that if he could just get the money, she would come back to him. So he set his sights on the Sterling family's historic estate. The old Sterling estate in the Hudson Valley. It was a century-old mansion. While it needed work, the land it sat on was worth a fortune. The deed to the property had always been hidden in a secret compartment behind the ancestral portraits in the main hall. 11 o'clock at night. A light rain was falling. Caleb scaled the property wall and crept into the main hall. He didn't turn on the lights, using only his phone to navigate. He felt around behind the portraits. Found it. He pulled out a wooden box and opened it excitedly. Inside was the old, yellow deed. He shoved it inside his jacket and turned to leave. Click! The grand chandeliers flickered on, flooding the hall with brilliant light. Caleb froze, dropping his phone in shock. I was sitting in a large, antique armchair, holding a cup of hot tea. Helena stood beside me, holding a black umbrella to shield us from a leak in the roof, water dripping from its edge. Outside, red and blue lights flashed. The sound of sirens grew closer. Hey, bro. Come to pay your respects to our ancestors in the middle of the night. I asked, blowing on my tea. Caleb's face was ghostly pale. He instinctively clutched his chest. Leo, how are you here? I was waiting for you, I said, setting down my cup. I knew that when you got desperate enough, you'd come for the deed. Your predictability is almost sad. Several police officers rushed into the hall and slammed Caleb onto the cold stone floor. Rainwater and mud smeared across his face. Let me go. I'm a Sterling. This is my family's property. It's not a crime to take what's yours, he screamed, struggling hysterically. I walked over and crouched down beside him. You're mistaken about something, bro. I pulled a document from my pocket and unfolded it in front of his face. The Sterling estate was officially transferred to Helena Vance's name yesterday. Dad signed the papers himself. What you're stealing now is private property owned by the Vance family. With a value north of $50 million, that's enough to get you a lifetime gig on a prison laundry crew. Caleb stared at the signatures and the official seal on the document. His eyes trembled, and he stopped breathing for a moment. Impossible. Dad would never give the ancestral home to an outsider. He did it because his son, his own flesh and blood, was about to sell it to save a two-bit con artist. My voice boomed through the hall. Dad would rather give the entire Sterling fortune to the Vances than watch you burn it all to the ground. All the fight went out of Caleb. He went limp on the floor. He looked at me, then at Helena, who stood behind me, her expression unreadable. Leo, you set me up? You've been setting me up from the very beginning, he seethed, his eyes filled with hatred. Yes, I did, I said, standing up to look down on him. You're arrogant, stupid, and self-righteous. You treated real love like garbage and worshipped garbage like it was a treasure. You have no one to blame for this but yourself. The police snapped a pair of handcuffs on his wrists. The cold, metallic click echoed in the silent night. As they led him away, he suddenly turned back. Now, I regret it. I really regret it. He choked out, tears mixing with the rain on his face. If I hadn't called off the engagement, there are no ifs. I cut him off coldly. You're an adult. You pay for your own mistakes. The police car sped away into the darkness. I stood at the entrance to the hall, watching the rain. Helena moved to my side, tilting the umbrella to cover me more. Is it over? She asked. It's over, I said, turning to look at her. The Sterling family drama is resolved. From now on, I guess you're stuck supporting me. She didn't look away. A faint smile touched her lips. Okay. Chapter 9. 1 month later. Vance Tower, the CEO's office on the top floor. Sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating the polished marble floors. I was sprawled on a massive leather sofa in sweatpants, controller in hand, trying to beat a boss in Elden Ring. Helena sat behind her desk, engrossed in a thick file. "You died" flashed across the screen in giant red letters. I threw the controller down in frustration. "Honey, this boss is impossible. Can you come help me?" "I'm busy," she said without looking up. "I'm still reviewing the asset reorganization plan for the Sterling Vance merger." "Well, review faster. Then you can come play with me." There was a soft knock on the door. Helena's assistant, Ashley, walked in. "Ms. Vance, Mr. Sterling, there's a man named Caleb Sterling downstairs asking to see you. He's kneeling in the lobby, and security can't get him to leave." I raised an eyebrow. "Oh, look who's out." Caleb's theft attempt was a bust, and since our father had a last-minute change of heart and didn't press charges, he only got a couple of weeks in a holding cell. "Send him up," Helena said calmly. 5 minutes later, Caleb was escorted in. He had lost a lot of weight. His hair was a matted mess, his face unshaven. He was wearing a faded old t-shirt and a pair of worn-out sneakers with holes in them. The arrogant, self-assured air was gone, replaced by this broken man. He stood in the middle of the office, nervously wringing his hands, staring at the floor, unable to meet Helena's gaze. "What's up, bro?" I asked, taking a bite of an apple. Caleb dropped to his knees with a thud. "Now, Helena, I'm begging you, please, lend me some money," he sobbed, his voice hoarse. "The loan sharks are after me. I can't live like this. Mom and Dad won't see me. You're the only ones I can turn to." I put down my apple and walked over to him. "Lend you money? How are you going to pay it back?" "I'll work. I'll do construction. I'll pay you back, I swear." He looked up, his face streaked with tears. "I know I was wrong. I was so wrong. That woman, Daisy, she took all my money and left me with her debts. I was blind. I was an idiot." He started slapping himself hard. Smack, smack, smack. The sharp sounds echoed in the quiet office. His cheeks quickly turned red and began to swell. I watched him, feeling nothing. "Bro, you made your bed," I sighed, picking up a folder from the desk and tossing it in front of him. "I can't lend you any money. The Sterling assets are all under Helena's name now. I'm just a trophy husband. I don't have that kind of authority." Caleb slumped to the floor and closed his eyes in despair. "However," I added, "that construction site in the South Bronx is now a Vance project. They're short on laborers. Room and board are covered, and it pays $200 a day. You want the job?" Caleb's eyes flew open, as if grabbing onto a final lifeline. "I'll take it. Yes, I'll do anything to survive." "Good. Ashley, take it down to HR and get him processed for the site." I waved my hand dismissively. Caleb pushed himself to his feet. He looked at me, then at Helena. He bowed deeply. "Thank you." He turned and walked out of the office. His back was stooped, making him look like an old man. The office was quiet again. Helena set down her pen and looked at me. "Was it you turning the other cheek?" "Hell no," I said, picking up the game controller again. "I want him to be on that construction site every day, staring up at the Vance Tower, and be reminded of what a colossal idiot he was. It's a special kind of psychological torture." A small laugh escaped Helena's lips. She stood up, walked over to the sofa, and sat down beside me. "Give me the controller." I blinked, then handed it over without a word. She took it, her fingers moving with surprising dexterity. On the screen, her character dodged and weaved, landing a flurry of perfect attacks. Less than 3 minutes later, the boss was dead. My jaw was on the floor. "Honey, you've been holding out on me." "Shut up," she said, tossing the controller back into my lap. "Go make me a coffee. Light on the sugar, extra cream." I snapped to my feet and gave a mock salute. "Yes, ma'am." Chapter 10. 1 year later. The South Bronx construction site. The sun beat down relentlessly. Caleb, dressed in a filthy work uniform with a towel slung over his shoulder, grunted as he pushed a heavy wheelbarrow full of bricks. Sweat poured down his tanned face, evaporating instantly on the hot concrete. "Sterling, move it." "What are you doing? Taking a nap?" the foreman yelled from across the site. "Coming." Caleb gritted his teeth and pushed harder. During a break, he sat in the shade, chugging water from canteen. A few other workers were gathered nearby, scrolling through TikTok on their phones. "Whoa, check it out. That Vance trophy husband is showing off again. Man, that guy is lucky." marries the richest woman in the city, and does nothing all day but play video games and walk the dog. Caleb's hand froze. He leaned over to look at the screen. In the video, I was wearing board shorts and flip-flops, racing a golden retriever across the sprawling lawn of a Hamptons mansion. Helena was sitting under a large parasol, sipping iced tea and watching me with a smile on her face. Caleb stared at my face on the screen, the life that should have been his, and his eyes started to burn. His stomach churned. He quietly turned away, picked up his trowel, and got back to work. The Hamptons mansion. I clipped the leash onto the golden retriever's collar and collapsed onto the sofa. I'm exhausted. That dog has too much energy, I panted. Helena came out of the kitchen and tossed an apron at my head. If you're done resting, you can do the dishes. I'm making beef Wellington for dinner, and I'm hungry. I pulled the apron off my head and hugged her legs. Honey, my arms are sore today. Can I get a pass? She looked down at me, her expression as cool as ever, but she didn't push me away. No these cheese. Then I'm docking your allowance this month. By half. No, no, no. I'll do them. I'll do them right now. I shot up like a rocket, tied on the apron, and sprinted for the kitchen. I paused at the doorway and looked back. Hey, after dinner, want to play a few rounds? Helena leaned back on the sofa and opened a magazine. We'll see how well you do the dishes. I grinned and disappeared into the kitchen. The water started running. I looked out the window at the bright afternoon sun and whistled a happy tune. This trophy husband life was pretty sweet.